श्रीमद्भागवतं नाम पुराणं लोकविश्रुतं शृणुयाद् श्रद्धयात् युक्तः मम सन्तोषकारणम्। मेनिरे भगवद्रूपं शास्त्रं भागवतं कलौ पठनात् श्रवणात् सद्यः वैकुण्ठफलदायकम्। Uddhava Gita, like Bhagavad Gita, is Vaikuntha Phaladayaka. The 11th chapter of the 11th skanda concludes on a very profound note. Krishna not only highlights the qualities of a bhakta, he also gives us a very practical framework to practice bhakti. We understand the significance of Bhagavad Aradhana in our day-to-day lives. And Krishna also teaches how we not only can fill our life with prayer, but we can make our life itself a prayer. Now, interestingly, Krishna concludes the 11th chapter on a very intriguing note. Krishna says, Athaitat paramam guhyam shinvato yadunandana sugopyam api vakshavi tvamme bhritya suhrut sakha. This is the concluding shloka of the 11th chapter, which in a way sets the stage for a beautiful chapter, which is the 12th. It is beautiful primarily for one reason. Along with Uddhava, we also get to reminisce the glory of the Gopikas of Vraja. Whenever the Gopikas are discussed, everything becomes beautiful. So again, in the 12th chapter, we see Krishna missing the Gopikas. That's the way we need to understand it. It's not the Gopikas missing Krishna, Krishna is missing the Gopikas. So it's a very beautiful chapter. And the 11th chapter therefore concludes with a shloka where Krishna says, Ataitat paramam guhyam shrunvato yadunandana. Hey Yadunandana, hey Uddhava, I'm going to now share with you a paramam guhyam, a top secret now. I'm going to reveal. Sugopyam api vakshavi tvamme bhritya suhrut sakha. Why am I going to reveal this top secret with you, hey Uddhava? Because you have 3 characteristics that qualify you to receive this secret. Interestingly, Uddhava is called by Krishna as Bhrityaha Suhrut Sakha. And we concluded last session with an aspiration, I would say, possibly an aspirational statement. Can I be Krishna's Sakha? Can I be Krishna's Suhrut? Can I be Krishna's Bhrityaha? Now, why these 3 are important here in this context? We see who is a Bhrityaha, one who is the servant. When one becomes a servant, the ego of autonomy dissolves. Suhrut, one who is a true well-wisher. When one becomes a true well-wisher, the ego of self-interest dissolves. When one is a sakha, true friend, the ego of distance dissolves. So therefore, in the case of Uddhava, there is no ego of self-autonomy, there is no ego of self-interest, there is no ego of distance. Uddhava, therefore you qualify. Now, this revelation from Krishna is more of busting a myth. is going to shatter some beliefs that typically we have. That is the reason why he qualifies that as Paramam Guhyam. Now, what is that which Krishna is going to refine in this particular chapter? Because we have seen that throughout Uddhava Gita, every chapter Krishna takes up one aspect of the seeker for refinement. Now, in this chapter, Krishna takes up intelligence, viveka, for refinement. Buddhi is going to be refined. And how do we understand refinement of buddhi? When buddhi finally realizes that I cannot reach Krishna, all that I can do is stop obstructing him. That is the ultimate state of refinement of buddhi. Let me repeat it. When buddhi realizes that I cannot reach Krishna, all that I can do is stop obstructing him. All of us always have this question. What is the role of intelligence in bhakti? Many times we also misunderstand. We understand intelligence and bhakti to be conflicting in nature. And sometimes, unfortunately, many look down upon a bhakta as possibly lacking intelligence, And they also call it Muda Bhakti, they say. Again, it's an oxymoron. Bhakti can never be Muda Bhakti because Bhakta is the one who is the most awakened. Where is the question of Muda being qualified as a qualifier of Bhakti? It's an oxymoron. So, what is the role of intelligence? And we also know that Bhakti actually is blossoming of Jnana. So therefore, intelligence has to play a role, very important role in life. Now, intelligence is viveka, discerning what is right and what is wrong. Realizing and recognizing reality. Now, what is the highest stage of viveka? What do we mean by viveka being refined in our life and living? We become intelligent truly in life only when we start recognizing the gifts in our life. So first and foremost, we can call ourselves intelligent only when our focus starts shifting from what we don't have to what we have. First, intelligence must help us in this regard, in this shift of this focus. If this shift does not happen, then there is no true intelligence. Therefore, the start of refinement of intelligence is the shift that happens in our life. What is that shift? Shifting from the focus from what we don't have to what we have. Because if we just reflect on the way we lead our lives, our focus is only on what we don't have, isn't it? We fail to notice what we have. It's the same state or a millionaire, a multimillionaire, a multi-billionaire or a pauper, doesn't matter. Where is the focus? Not on what is already there. The focus is always what is not there. Now, if that is the focus, then intelligence is not really mature. We cannot call that intelligence at all as per our Shastras. In the material world, one may call intelligence as looking at what to achieve what we don't have, but that is not what is true intelligence. But intelligence, when it starts to refine, we start noticing the gifts in our life. But life's journey cannot end there. A seeker becomes more mature when he moves from not only recognizing gifts in life, he moves to a state where one recognizes life as a gift. This is where intelligence gets refined. Life becomes a gift, which means when life becomes a gift, when I recognize Krishna's presence in every moment of my life, life itself becomes magical. I don't need any extra magic. I'm not searching for any extra miracles. I'm not asking for anything special from life anymore, because every moment of my life is magical. Life itself is a gift. I'm celebrating every moment of my life because I have now recognized that Krishna has given me the best gift possible. So when that happens, that is the stage when intelligence gives way and it steps aside for what? For Krishna Bhakti. Love takes over, intelligence has to rest. The role of intelligence over. There is no more need for vairagya. There is no more need for discernment. There is no more need for analysis paralysis. Because then it is all about bhakti. It is all about love for Krishna. So therefore, in this chapter, we see how Krishna does this refinement so very beautifully. And in that process, he is going to shatter some myths, some very strong beliefs that we have. I also look at this chapter in another way. I look at it, the collapse of the ego. Not just one collapse. We are going to see 7 collapses. 7 collapses of the ego. What are the 7 collapses? Number 1, the ego of achievement. Number 2, the ego of conceptual mastery. Number 3, ego of eligibility. Number 4, ego of moral control. Number 5, ego of separation tolerance. Number 6, ego of direction. And number 7, ego of self-improvement. So we're going to see 7 collapses of the ego. Only when the ego collapses, only then we can truly unite and stay connected with Krishna. That's the state of gopis, isn't it? We must once again recall Dashama Skanda when we celebrated the gopis of Vraja, how they beautifully teach the fundamental life lessons, how they teach the very core of what it means to be in love with Krishna. The secret is the eye cannot see Krishna, but the eye can, provided Krishna is willing. The first eye is E-Y-E. The second eye is I, the Krishna Dasa, the Gopika. When Krishna wills, it is not about, the question is not, can I see him? The question is, when will he reveal? There is this fundamental understanding. We must, this is a shift that needs to happen. We must understand where effort starts and where it has to end. There is a place for effort to start, and there is also a place for effort to stop. Because somewhere heat has to take over. So this is where we need to also understand the role of intelligence. Intelligence has a significant role to play. Therefore, refinement of intelligence is so very important. But then, intelligence at some point has to step aside. When it is refined enough, it realizes its final duty. The final ultimate duty of intelligence, of buddhi, is to step aside and let love rule us. So that's what we are going to see in the 12th chapter. Now, what are these 7 egos, of collapses of egos? Now, we'll see that as we go through the shlokas, but it is also good for us to understand what these are, because some of these are really shattering some of our very strong beliefs. First one is the collapse of the ego of achievement. I can reach Krishna by my effort. Collapse of this ego, the collapse of I can reach him by my effort. No, let's understand this. This is not anti-effort. We must understand Krishna, it cannot be conquered by intensity of our effort. He can only be conquered by the intimacy that we demonstrate. So there is a limited role for effort. Again, I'm saying a limited role. There is a role, but there is a limited role. So ego of achievement, that's the first collapse that we are going to see. The second, ego of conceptual mastery. I know who Krishna is. This is where again, trying to overestimate the capability of my intelligence to conceptualize Krishna in fullness. Impossible. Now that is why Shastras keep always saying, Anoraniya Mahato Mahiyam. Don't ever try to put him into one basket, trying to analyze him with your intelligence. The reason why the Shastras keep talking about two different kinds of aspects in trying to know him is because we may wrongly conclude that I can conceptually master him. That is the second collapse, the collapse of conceptual mastery. The third collapse of the ego is collapse of eligibility. The collapse of the belief that qualification alone guarantees attainment. Again, these are really shattering some of our beliefs. We need, we need to really dwell and reflect on some of these very deeply, which we will do in the coming weeks. But the collapse of the ego of eligibility, essentially the ego of I deserve this. I am eligible. What is important is not whether I deserve or not. What is important is whether I desire Krishna or not. Desiring is what I must do. Deserving is what he will decide. But unfortunately, we may desire him, but many times that graduates and becomes a deserving. The moment we operate in a mode of deserving, that's where our ego starts to rule. Saying, hey Krishna, I deserve you. No. Again, each of these we can relate to when we start, reminiscing on the Gopikas. Therefore, spiritual eligibility is not something you and I can decide. We cannot say that today, now, I am spiritually qualified. I have reached a state where Krishna is mine. That decision is not ours. Again, this must also answer our question. Last 15 years I have been doing sadhana. Nothing seems to be happening. Many times we have this question. Nothing seems to be happening. Krishna remains as distant as he was 15 years back. Yes. In 15 years possibly is the situation, but in 15 seconds things can change. Therefore, the third collapse of the ego is the ego of eligibility. The fourth is something which we need to a little bit understand, the ego of moral control. Now, we must understand the difference between karmic mathematics and Almighty's arithmetic. We are all good in karmic mathematics, at least we think so. The moment we start to understand karma, law, until we try, until we have a little bit of understanding, it is a different problem we have. The moment we start understanding, there is prarabdha karma, there is sanchita karma, there is agami karma, karma, there is karma vasana, karma pala, we start understanding karma, then we start thinking, maybe I can build a mathematical model. This karma, if I do, I will get this kind of punya. this karma I don't do, I will not get this kind of papa. So therefore, I can engineer, orchestrate and architect certain outcomes based on doing certain rituals, doing certain sadhana, certain things. I start looking at the methods prescribed in the Shastras as something I can take control of. This is what I call as karmic mathematics, and we all start doing PhDs in karmic mathematics. We take astrology, we take astronomy, we take all the Shastras which give all of this, we all put together and we come up with a exhaustive model, we think. And there are various AI models also that are coming these days. ChatGPT, Gemini, all will help us come up with multidimensional models. None of this will ultimately work, because Almighty's arithmetic is not karmic mathematics. So therefore, the ego of moral control must collapse. And it is in that collapse that we recognize that it is not about solving. Krishna is not a mystery to be solved. He is not a puzzle to be unraveled. He is someone to be loved. As simple as that. So this is a very important realization that must happen. The fifth collapse is the collapse of the ego of separation tolerance. There is one big ego that we all have, which whether we realize it or not. You may all say, why am I saying, being very blunt? Our ego makes us numb to separation from Krishna. We don't realize this. No, we are all like fish out of water. But a fish out of water, just imagine, visualize, what is that it is undergoing? We are supposed to be like that. Fish out of water. Separation from Krishna tantamounts to being fish out of water. But our ego makes us numb. Numb to such an extent that we think we are proud of tolerating our separation from Krishna. We are actually, one of the things that we actually tolerate well, the mastery of, we have not mastered tolerating tapatrayas. But we have mastered tolerating our separation from Krishna. Because of so this ego of separation tolerance must collapse. We must become like fish out of water. Every time I contemplate on this, the Chintayanti of Vraja comes to my mind, where she was unable to bear separation from Krishna. And she lost her very life there, neither able to come out of our house, nor able to go back inside our house. That is the highest state of inability to bear that separation. How are we all leading our lives so very well, so very comfortably? Because we have become numb. We are all meant to be the Chintayantis. And the collapse of the ego of separation tolerance is the fifth collapse. What is the sixth collapse? The ego of direction. Again, we must understand this clearly. The collapse of Krishna is my object, I am the pursuer. This is what we all think. Well, there is some truth in it. Yes, Krishna is my object, I am pursuing, no doubt. But as long as I only believe in this truth, that he is the object, he is the destination I am pursuing, the very fact that I am pursuing means there is still ego playing. Now, how can this ego collapse? Only when I realize reality is I am not the pursuer. Krishna is pursuing me. It is not I who am pursuing Krishna, it is Krishna who is pursuing me. It is not that I am going after something which is my destination. The destination is with me, traveling with me, wanting me to recognize. So we must understand who is the pursuer, who is being pursued. Caught in the cycle of samsara, how many janmas we start counting where we have failed to recognize that he has been pursuing us all the while, asking us to turn and recognize his presence. We have not recognized his presence. So therefore, when we say he is the object, I am pursuing him, there is still that ego, and even this ego has to collapse. Again, think of the Gopikas of Vraja. We might have moved away from Dashamaskanda. We might have moved away from the Gopikas. Let not the Gopikas move away from us. It's like saying, we went to Vrindavan, we came back from Vrindavan, but the Vrindavana in us can never be taken out. It has to remain. And the Gopikas have to remain and that is the reason, even for Uddhava. Realize this, Krishna is teaching Uddhava, and we have seen how exalted Uddhava is. But even to Uddhava, Krishna teaches, hey Uddhava, learn from the Gopikas. So this is the beauty here. Krishna is addressing Uddhava, he is not addressing Arjuna. Remember this, Krishna did not talk about this in the Gita. Krishna could have. But he knew with Arjuna he shouldn't have, 700 shlokas was enough. Was enough. Anyway, he had to recap it again, once again. Why talk about the exalted Gopikas to Arjuna in the Gita? With Uddhava he can, because he already knows that Uddhava already has experienced the glory of the Gopikas when he visited Vraja. We must, remember when Uddhava went, when he was sent to Vraja, Uddhava went and said, let me go and teach the Gopikas how to bear the separation from Krishna. Let me go and give them, wisdom. Uddhava went with that mindset. And what happened? Even before he could near them, the moment he landed in Vraja, he prostrated to the Gopikas, just looking at them. Because he knew it is Krishna Trishna embodied. Every Gopika is just Krishna Trishna personified. And therefore, the seventh collapse is the collapse of the ego of self-improvement. What does this mean? The collapse of, I must become worthy first. No. Unfortunately or fortunately, all of us have this notion. And sometimes we also use this as an excuse. Most often it is excuse. Sometimes we also strongly believe it. What is that? We think sadhana or spiritual journey is about making myself perfect. I will make myself perfect, and then, Krishna will come to me. When will this happen? And can it ever happen? This is the question. And therefore, the collapse of this ego of self-improvement is essentially saying, it is not about trying to become Krishna Bhakta. It is in the very fact that when the statement, I try to become a Krishna Bhakta, means there is an ego there. This is what again the Gopikas teach. The Gopikas did not try to become Krishna Bhaktas. No. They did not just know Krishna Bhakti. They became Krishna Bhakti. No. That knowing has to translate into becoming, because Krishna is not waiting for perfection. Krishna is not waiting for, Krishna is very impatient. He is impatiently been patient for how many janmas, I don't know. Because he's been very patient, but at the same time he's also impatient. Because why? We've been endeavoring for perfection, which is never going to happen. What Krishna wants is not perfection. Krishna wants our availability. As simple as that. What all he's expecting is to turn to him and say, hey Krishna, I am available to you. Because otherwise what we are saying, as we discussed in the past couple of weeks also, is my availability is not exclusive for Krishna, isn't it? He is one of those many people, he possibly gets into my busy schedule, I can accommodate him. Don't worry, Krishna, I will accommodate you. If possible, I will increase my, I will be more accommodative. I'll possibly put more slots in the week. My calendar is very busy. I have many important things to do in my life. Yes, we are accommodative. Krishna loves it when we are very accommodative. This is exactly what he's waiting for, not perfection. Making availability, opening up our time, our resources, opening up ourselves to him. That is the ultimate collapse. Collapse of I must become worthy first. So what is important here is Krishna in this 12th chapter, once again by taking the example of gopis, is saying he is not to be attained by approaching him with correctness. It is not an approach of focus on being correct, being on perfect. It is by approaching in such a way that expressing that, hey Krishna, I cannot live without you. I am not there without you. That is the approach he is expecting and not the other way around. So in a way, 7 collapses of the ego. So that's the reason why I said this chapter is beautiful, because of it brings us back, brings all the Gopikas back into our consciousness. Na rodhayati mam yogo, na sankyam dharma evacha, na swadhyayas tapastyagaha, neshta purtam na dakshina, pratani yajyas chandamsi, tirtani niyamayamaha, yatavarunde satsangaha, sarva sangapaho himam. What a beautiful way Krishna begins this chapter. He says there are two things here. One is he shatters one particular belief, that the belief that if we just focus on the methods, on the sadhanas, we can attain Krishna. Let's understand this. All the means, the methods are important. They have their place. But we must understand their place. Krishna says, and he uses the word beautifully, na rodhayati mam, na rodhayati ma. Rodhayati means control. He says, you cannot control me, you cannot conquer me, you cannot bind me with all Sankhya, Dharma, Swadhyaya, Tapa, Tyaga, Ishta, Purta, Dakshina, Vrata, Yajna, Chandamsi, Tirtha, Niyama, Yama. All these, essentially what he is saying is, by performing all of this, if you believe that you can attain Krishna, that's because in each of these methods, inherent to it, there is a play of the ego that comes in. Now, essentially what Krishna is saying, don't approach Krishna as a project. Don't think that, okay, this is the goal, Krishna is the goal. We keep talking about it. Yes, he's the goal. But if we start looking at how do I, this is my, moksha is a project. Now, what is this sadhana will get me this. If I do this, I will get this. If I don't do this, I will avoid this. If we start working on the methods and the prescriptions and the means like this, then we are setting ourselves with failure. What Krishna is saying is essentially, methods mean control, which means methods mean I start to think I am the controller. Methods mean doership. Methods mean calculation. Methods mean self-achievement. So all these are dangerous. Because of this, remember, that is why we keep asking this question, right? Last 5 years I have been chanting Gita every year. How many times did I chant? Some of us even have a calculation. Now, I have done so many things. I have done so many donations. I have given. I have done this. I have done that. But still, I don't see this happening. This mind is calculating even what we are meant to be doing as Kainkarya to Krishna. So therefore, what Krishna is therefore saying, so how do I basically shatter this? The focus has to shift from not proving my worthiness, because many times the reason why we do all of this is to basically prove to Krishna that I am worthy. It is not about proving my worthiness. Ultimately, our effort, if the effort is not about proving worthiness, in actually dropping our resistance. It is essentially, it is not about Krishna as a project to attain, it is about Krishna is already there. It is just that I am blocking his presence. Every moment I am basically not responding to his nearness. This is what I need to understand. It is not that he is away from me, he is a faraway goal who is need to be attained over a period of time. I now change my perspective, because now loving him means recognizing his presence. Now, therefore, how do I prepare to receive him? Now, therefore, the focus also shifting from his giving to my receiving. As long as I am doing all the sadhanas to attain him, I'm only saying, I do not recognize that my life is sustained by my asking. No, we all think that my life is sustained because I am asking Krishna. Right from the time I've taken birth, I'm asking Krishna, hey Krishna, give me this, don't give me this. And we all think that we are where we are because I have been intelligent enough in asking many things. But we must recognize this life is sustained not because of our asking. Life is sustained because of his giving. The moment we recognize that, then it is not in asking that we will try to become experts. We are trying to become experts in asking today. Today our focus is how I can become an expert in asking Krishna. How I can make a proposition, a business proposition, It's like making a proposition to somebody in business, right? How can I intelligently ask? We are also proud sometimes to say, I ask in a way that Krishna cannot refuse. So instead of trying to become experts in asking, if we just shift and see, am I actually an expert in receiving? Because his grace is already flooding. Because it's like saying, should I become an expert in asking sun to give me sunlight, or should I become an expert in receiving sun's light without any obstruction? Whether I ask or not, sun is going to give me light. So what is the point in becoming an expert in asking sun in 1,000 different ways of giving me sunlight? Instead, I must focus on how I can effortlessly receive the sunlight. So therefore here, Krishna is changing our focus. He's saying, and that can happen when I see the sun, which I know sun's presence. Similarly, when I am in love with Krishna, I recognize his presence. I see his signature in everything that is happening. And then I stop asking him, I start preparing myself to receive everything. So, Krishna does not become another project for me. Otherwise, we are all looking at, okay, this sadhana is another project I have to do this year. Come New Year, okay, this year chanting Bhagavad Gita, at least so many number of times. This is my project. It's not a project. A project mindset means that ego is still there. That ego has to collapse. So Krishna is beautifully saying, Drop the control, drop the calculation, drop the achievement. Enjoy Krishna. Just enjoy. Because He is there. He is there. And when that is there, why waste time on all the effort when the real nectar is always available? So that's the beauty of this particular shloka. Therefore he says, and he also says, na rodhayati mam. What he is saying, again, go back to the Shamaskanda. Yashoda was managing easily to bind Krishna, isn't it? He says, I can be bound, I can be controlled, I'm ready to be controlled, provided you shift the focus. Therefore, the use of word rodhayati is so very important. You cannot control me by doing all of this. But what is important does not mean that we stop doing Sankhya, Dharma, Swadhyaya, Tapa, Yoga, Ishta, Purta, Dakshina, Vrata. All of this are there. They are all means. They have their place. But what is more important for us is the ending. Yatavarunde satsangaha sarva sangapaho himam. So he says, ultimately, essentially, how can I make this happen? He once again comes back to satsangaha. As simple as that. An ego can only collapse in satsanga. Unfortunately, in the world, many things that we learn straight away cannot be practiced. The world will laugh at us. Only in satsanga, where everyone is nourishing each other, everyone is working on not Krishna as a project, working on Krishna as a presence. Only there, the collapse of the ego can start. Because in the world, outside, collapse of the ego can never happen. In satsanga, the collapse will happen, and then when we expose ourselves to the world, the ego has already collapsed. So that's the importance of satsanga. It is only, in satsanga, we don't move towards Krishna. Krishna is moving towards us. This is the big difference we must realize. Because Krishna loves. That is why, again, let's go back to the Gopikas. When was a Gopika lamenting Krishna's separation alone? When was a Gopika reaching out to Krishna alone? Interestingly, we are celebrating Dhanurmasa. We are celebrating the month of Margari, month of Tiruppavai, month of illustrious Goda Devi, Andal, who emulated the Gopikas of Vraja, and she did Vrata for 30 days to win over Krishna, to control Krishna. Rodhayati. Krishna said, I will become controlled. And she ended up eventually marrying him. That's the ultimate control, isn't it? All the spouses here know. Krishna, therefore here, what we see, and what did Goda Devi do? She did not approach Krishna on her own. When we go through the 30 Pasurams of Tiruppavai, what is beautiful is, it is not Andal singing to Krishna on her own. Every day she goes around knocking on people's doors, waking them, shaking them, come, wake up, come, join me. She diligently visited every house and she woke up everyone, hey, come, don't sleep, what is this? It is time for us to go together. She did not go alone. She got everybody. This is exactly what we do in Satsanga. This is exactly what Goda Devi wanted us. This is what exactly the Gopikas want. Why? This is what pleases Krishna. When I say, hey Krishna, Krishna likes it. But when we all together say, hey Krishna, he loves it. That is the power of Satsanga. Therefore, it's again another divine coincidence. We are discussing this right in Dhanurmasa, the month of Tiruppavai. Now what Krishna therefore says, and then Krishna goes on and he gives beautiful examples across yugas. He gives the examples of Daityas, of Danavas, of Mrigas, of various kinds of celestial beings, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Kinnaras. He gives the examples of kings. He gives the examples of Vanaras. He gives the examples of every possible Varna, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya. He gives all kinds of examples and he says, all of them, have attained me. Now, what is one thing which connects all of these is the question that he asks Uddhava. Uddhava says, yes, qualification. He says, yes, qualification is true. But not your qualification, Uddhava. What connects all of them is my qualification. It is not our qualification which makes a difference to whether we get moksha or not. It is Krishna's qualification to give us moksha. If I believe in his qualification, I get moksha. If I believe on my qualification, I will never get moksha. Because giving moksha, only he can. So therefore, by giving examples of Prahlada, of Gajendra, of Jatayu, of Bali, of Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Vibhishana, he gives several examples and he says there is one thing which connects all of them. It is essentially they knew that qualifications matter, Krishna's qualifications matter. So the very important thing to realize therefore is when we celebrate Krishna's qualifications, then we are not bothered about our worthiness. It is not Varna that matters. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya, going beyond Varnas. Even Manushya Kula does not matter. Because he gives examples beyond. He says, oh, you think Daityas and Danavas the doors are shut? Let's take the case of Prahlada. Let's take the case of Vibhishana. Do you think, the case of Mrigas? Take the case of Gajendra. Immediately, Kashyap is making a note to ask a question, which we ask very many times. But what is important in all the cases is he beautifully connects them and says, ultimately, it is Krishna making the choice. And his choices are always beautiful. That's the beauty. Krishna's choices are beautiful. And when we relish that beauty, this life becomes beautiful and life after is guaranteed to be beautiful. Kevalena bhi bhavena gopyo gavo nagamrigaha enye mudhadiyo nagaha siddha mam ir anjasa. Now Krishna is reminiscing Vraja. Krishna, obviously we all keep asking, how did he abandon Gopikas? Krishna never abandoned Gopikas. Yes, Gopikas were in fire of separation. Krishna was also in fire of separation. We think it was Gopikas who were in fire of separation. More than the Gopikas, Krishna was in fire of separation. So he always missed them. He was always with them. And here again he is saying, hey Uddhava, the inhabitants of Vrindavana, kevalena hi bhavena. All that they had was just, Krishna says kevalena hi, simple love he says. Love to Krishna cannot be that simple, but he is trying to make it very, he says, Gopyaha, the gopis, the blessed gopis, Gavaha, the blessed cows of Vrindavana, Nagaha, the moving creatures of Vrindavana, like how blessed are the trees in Vrindavana. We must remember, Balarama looks at Krishna and says, hey Krishna, look at all the trees of Vrindavana. Aho abhideva vara mararchitam padambujam te sumanah palarhanam. He says, Balarama notices every tree in Vrindavana, it seems are all bent always. Every tree is bent with all the branches bending downwards, touching the ground. Because why? They are constantly worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna. He says, even the trees which are in the mode of Tamoguna, when it comes to Vrindavana, they are Shuddha Sattva, he says. Because why? Even they are so blessed that every tree is also constantly worshipping you, hey Krishna, just because they are in Vrindavana. Therefore, Gopyaha, Gavaha, Naga, Mrigaha. All the animals in Vrindavana, how blessed they are. Anya Mudhadiyo Nagaha. All Here mudha has to be understood, even those who are not equipped with shastric knowledge. Naga, the Nagapatnis. We must go back and reflect on those beautiful, glorious, the stotra, the stuti of Nagapatnis, where they were able to recognize Krishna and love him. And this Siddhamam Yuranjasa. He says, all of them were able to easily know me, attain me, because of only one thing. Because they all genuinely, sincerely loved me. And that is the only reason. Kevalena hi bhavena. Ramena sardham maturam pranite. Swapakalpina mai anurakta chittaha. Vighada bhavena name viyoga tivradhayonyam tadrushyu sukhaya. Now Krishna is now reflecting on the sorry state of the Gopikas. Now Krishna is sharing, Uddhava is his sakha. So Krishna is sharing his angst. We all experience the angst of the Gopikas. When Akrura came, Akrura the Krura, who separated Krishna from the Gopikas, we all experience the angst. How the Gopikas were tormented in the fire of separation. Krishna says, I was also equally tormented by that fire of separation. He says, Ramena sardham maturam pranite swakalpina mai anurakta chittaha. Vigada bhavena is, talking about the love of the Gopikas. He says, Vigada bhava. It is not about sorrow. We cannot say, many times the words that we use in English for the Gopikas are unfortunately are not complete enough to give us a reflection of the true Gopi Bhava. Therefore, Vigada Bhavena, this is not just another emotion. This is not sorrow. This is not attachment. This is not also devotion as an effort. It means this is love so deep that it replaces even one's identity. It is not that I am missing Krishna, I am even missing myself, because I am not there if Krishna is not there. Because my very identity is rooted in Krishna. Who am I without Krishna? So that love is so deep. Vigada bhavena. And he says, Name viyoga tivradhayaha. Viyoga tivradhayaha. That separation, this is that fire of separation that burns illusion. What is that illusion? We must understand the Gopika's fire of separation here. It is that fire which burns everything else. What is that? It burns any substitutes for happiness. We all know Krishna is a source of happiness, but unfortunately for us, there are many substitutes, we think. That is the reason why we are running after many sources of happiness. But the Viyoga Tivradhaya of the Gopikas, this is that fire that destroys. There are no substitutes for happiness anymore. There are no compensations. Nothing in this world can fill Krishna's place. There is no world without Krishna. This is that fire he's talking about. Tivradaya anyam dadrushu sukhaya. Anyam dadrushu sukhaya. Nothing else can be registered as happiness. So, because let's say if we take up an exercise, what makes me happy? Right? We all come with a long list. Right? The Gopikas say, there is no long list. There is only one thing which will make me happy, Krishna. Nothing else can take that peace. Tivradaya anyam dadrushu sukhaya. Essentially, we think separation actually weakens. But the Gopikas teach that separation does not weaken devotion. Separation purifies devotion. Sometimes we may think, why Krishna has given that separation to Gopikas? In many ways, it is to teach us that we too must ultimately recognize that separation. Because we too are separated from Krishna, isn't it? Only through the separation of Gopikas, we must at least recognize that, hey, I too am separated from Krishna. And that separation, the fire of separation, must purify my devotion. Just like how it purified the Gopikas of Vraja. Also, we get another meaning for liberation. Liberation, moksha, we all say is freedom from pain. No. Liberation actually means, moksha means freedom from alternatives. There is no other alternative other than Krishna. That is why when we say Vaikuntha Prapti, Krishna Prapti means there is no other alternative. Krishna is all. Only here we are trying to find alternatives. True liberation is not freedom from pain. Freedom from pain is a byproduct. If we only try for freedom from pain, we will never get it. But when we get freedom from alternatives, freedom from pain becomes a byproduct. This is again what the Gopikas teach beautifully. Tastakshapha preshtatamena nita mayaiva vrindavana gocharena kshanardavatta punarangatasam hina maya kalpa samababhuvaha. Another beautiful shloka where I chant the shloka, I'm getting horripilations. It says, dear Uddhava, Dhastakshapaha preshtathamena nita mayaiva vrindavana gochare kshanardhavatta punarangatasam hina maya kalpa samabhavuvaha. Or the Gopikas of Vraja, in my separation, a kshana, a moment is like a millennia. And in my presence, even a millennia becomes a kshana. What is beautiful here is Krishna gives us a beautiful definition for time now. At different contexts, we have discussed time in detail, but here we get a beautiful definition of time. Time is nothing but our felt distance from Krishna. Time is nothing but the distance that I feel from Krishna, which means when my distance from Krishna is long, time is long, time stretches. When the distance from Krishna is near, time collapses. So in reality, what is time? We all say time passes. No, time never passes. Time can only do two things. Either it stretches or it collapses. And for the Gopikas beautifully say this, in Krishna's presence, time collapses. After all, we say, there is no Kala in Vaikuntha. There is no time there. Why? Because we are in blissful presence of Bhagavan all the time. No obstructions whatsoever. Time has collapsed beyond time. Aprakrita mandala. Prakrita mandala, time stretches because distance, my distance, the felt distance, again, I'm using the word very consciously, felt distance. The real distance is zero. He is with me. But my felt distance is long. He is far, far away from me. And my felt distance is long. Time can only stretch, and we are all passing time all the time. When reality, time collapses. Timelessness means I am rooted in Krishna. I am immersed in Krishna Bhakti. I am experiencing Krishna to the fullest. That is true timelessness. That is what is aprakrita. Therefore, when we think of Gopikas, we must be reminded that the teachings of Gopikas are immortal is because of this. In a very simple way, they teach us some profound truths. We get a beautiful definition of what time is. Should we stop here on time? Because to me, time is collapsed. We'll pause here. Yeah. Saram Se Krishna Pramsa.